Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. It is Monday, March 11th, 2024. First thing I want to do is give a shout out to my sister. And the reason for that is on this day, 35 years ago, my wife and I went on our first date, and it was a blind date that my sister set up. So I give a shout out to my sister for that, and she gets a bell. So we've been together for 35 years after that, starting that today. Back then, and our first date was at a Pizza Hut. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And we've been together ever since. So shout out to my sister. Welcome everybody. If you're new to my channel or new to the live stream, I try to talk about, for the most part, classic cars. Sometimes we go off tangent a little bit. We may talk about food. We may talk about movies. We may talk about life. There's a lot that we can talk about, and I ask you to be part of it. You know, I get lots of people involved. I get questions, and I try to give answers to those questions. And also, anytime that there is a question I really can't come up with an answer to, I've got a great group of people over there in the chat box here every week, and I appreciate all of them as well. As I did earlier, I gave a bell to my sister, and everybody gets a bell for participating. Now, I don't have any particular subject matter that we're going to talk about specifically tonight, but I will say that our classic car, as I say, range is about 1955, let's say, somewhere around that time period, up until maybe 1979, 80, I think, is kind of the cutoff. So if you have something you want to bring up in that time period, awesome. I will say also that there's been good feedback on the latest video that I put out. I'm sure many of you have already seen it, and that was, of course, dealing with all the front sheet metal on the front of the Cobra Jet. This is really, in a sense, the end of that work. As many of you, well, everybody here should know, I started with a very rusty 69 Mach 1 Cobra Jet and basically rebuilt the whole body from new parts and some of the original parts. And it's been a rough journey. It started off doing it for the owner of the car, and he ended up passing away, and his wife has taken over the project. And so we are continuing to do the project, and hopefully everything still stays on course, and we can get it together for her. But there's a lot to do yet, and I'm not sure exactly where the stop point is on my side of things. For me, I'm probably going to be painting the car, as I've said, and that may be all I do. I don't want to do everything else. I don't want to put in the interior. I don't want to put in the drivetrain. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I have other people that want me to do all the sheet metal work on their car, and that's what I really like to do, so I want to try to focus on that and do that moving forward. I also want to say that I had a visitor today. Now, I have a friend who lives here locally. He's originally from Finland, and he's been in the States for a long time, since the mid-90s. And he occasionally has friends who visit him, and so I had a visitor from Finland, and it was kind of fun to show him around what I was doing. He was really interested in this project and the boat trailer jig and a lot of different things like that. He has more Mopar vehicles over there. And so it was a fun time just talking about cars and hanging out. And, I think we can all, that's kind of what we're doing right here. But the difference is I'm able to have somebody respond back verbally, so you can have that conversation and it's instantaneous. Whereas here I have to wait for the ticker to come through and get caught up on the comments. So anyway, again, welcome to the live stream. There's a few things I do have that I'm going to talk about specifically tonight, but also keep in mind that we're open to any real discussion on these things. So let's see who's here tonight and get the show going. And first in is Rick Game. Rick says, very windy New Jersey, a good day to stay in and just talk about cars. Hope all is doing well. Glad you're here, Rick. Appreciate you. Terry Keithley checking in. Evening, everyone in Barrie. Spring is here and it's Monday night. Please hit the thumbs up and like for Barrie. Thank you kindly. Thank you, Terry. Steve Reed. Hello, Joe Daddy, and everyone, and hope everyone is having a great day. Thank you, Steve. Steve, do I want to say Paducah, Kentucky at this point? Is that what I want to say? I think I do. Troy Justin, good evening all from coastal Georgia. You have made amazing progress on Slither. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You know, it's really bittersweet. It is, because I love to weld. I love to measure things and fit things and get everything lined up. And there's still a lot of that to do, but the welding is the thing that I really like to do, and I think I'm better at that than most things. Even though I can do good body work and I can paint and all those other things, but I get so much satisfaction out of the welding. And even I know that there's been a lot of talk about the grinding and all those things. That doesn't even bother me. It's just, to me, it's almost like an art form. So I have these welds, and I have to find the car back where the welds were, and I just kind of work my way through those things. It really doesn't affect me. I know it's weird, but it's kind of relaxing in a way to do stuff like that. Rusty's Restoration. Hello, all, and Barry from sunny southern Indiana. Give thumbs up, everyone. The coverage is making huge leaps. Should be mocking it up soon. Yes, that is the plan. I do want to get the doors hung on it. Make sure the fenders, everything's going to line up, and from there, I think once I'm comfortable with all that, there's still a few little places that need some welds, but yeah, it's going to end up on the rotisserie, and I'm going to start working on the underside of it. Again, if there's any welding that has to happen there, I'll weld those areas. But yeah, it's feeling pretty good to make this progress. Troy, I didn't make much progress tonight. I ran out of gas for the welder. I did order a hole punch after seeing yours in action. Well, I hope you ordered it off my Amazon link. I hope. That's the goal. Steve Grimes, good evening from a windy South Central PA. Glad to hear, Steve. Robert, the Infernal Craftsman, checking in. Evening all, at home at the shop this week. Nice weather for a short time here, too. Glad to hear, Robert. Evan's Messy Garage. I think you've modified that. Wasn't it just Evan's Garage before? Hello. Glad to be back on CNC. I've been busy, but managed to fully finish my floor and seat brackets, tested the doors and fenders, and amazingly, everything still lines up. That's awesome. You get 2 bells for that. Roger, Hindsight67, greetings from next door. Glad to hear, Raj. Dave Conville, good evening all. First Dave. Car guy Troy is checking in. Hi all, hope all is well. Thank you. Glad you're here, and same to you. Let's see. Nandu, good evening, Barry and everyone. Glad you're here, Nandu. Richard Vogel, good evening, Barry. Thanks for having us. Well, thank you for being here. There we go. Yeah, intermittent bell levels of sound there. Richard, I see you a lot on Facebook, on my Facebook page, and I appreciate comments and everything you do there and questions. I've been posting a lot of reels, as they call them, making short video clips, and I've been trying to improve on those as well. Now, does it benefit me on Facebook? I have no idea. I know that I'm getting a lot more people that are following me from my reels, which is cool. And they're following me on Facebook, though. And I really, really need them to follow me on YouTube. But I don't know if they know that my presence on YouTube. And it's still a struggle on that, because there's so many times, I see other creators on there, and they'll post a video, and within not even a week, they'll have 50,000 views on it. I'm like, what is going on? Why can't I get these kind of views? It would be so nice if it worked that way for everybody. Robert, a little staticky. I don't know what that means. That sounds like a new word. I like it. Staticky. Wally checking in. 68 Mustang Restoration. Pizza Hut used to be great. All you can eat as well as dessert pizza. Yes, used to be great. Yes, you're right. And I've been seeing you've been doing some work on the Cobra. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch many of those, but I do see the videos pop up on my feed. So hopefully I can catch up on some of those as well. The Dawn is checking in. Greetings. Happy Monday, everyone. Glad you're here. Mark Watson. Good evening, Barry. I found someone to make the floor pans for my 74 Gran Torino. That is awesome. Mark and I were communicating earlier about where he could get floor pans for the 74 Gran Torino, and that nobody makes those. I did a little searching, and I found a company called Classic to Current. Now, I can't say they're going to be the exact floor pans or even close. They may copy some of the pattern, but it's probably not. It's like a short patch. It's not the full floor pan. So, but if you found somebody that can make them, that's awesome. I know I looked up, I think it was Classic to Current because of my brother's 64 Studebaker. It needs floor pans or needs patches or whatever. And I want to say that Classic to Current makes something, and I'm probably going to have to buy those because there's not many at all options available for the Studebakers. Harvey checking in. Rally Cat Garage. Happy 35-year first date anniversary. Thank you, sir. Yep. And the Dawn greetings. Happy Monday, everyone. Oh, got you twice on that one. Glad you're here. Harvey, love the latest video and would like to hear more on the spot welder. Looked great in the video. You know, I'm glad you brought that up because I had a comment on there from, I think it was Dawn. I think it was from Dawn's Manufacturing. I think. Had a comment on there about that. And he wanted to see me do some like destructive testing. And so earlier I did. I went ahead and took that sample piece that I had stamped or used to test it, and I tried to rip it apart. So let me show you that real quick. So that is the sample piece, and I put that in a vise, and then I took my flat pliers, duckbill pliers, and rotated that around, and basically it ripped. The weld held, but the metal ripped apart. And I did that. That was the same, like when I was doing that and making that happen, like I was crimping it together, I was basically counting to about 2 to 3 seconds. And I would watch the metal and watch the heat transfer. And if there was any arcing, or sparks, I knew that it was still making contact. But I just kind of held it there, just squeezed it, and waited for feel that energy go through it, and let go. So I'm pretty confident that should prove how well that bonded the metal together, or welded it together. So, but yeah, I really did like using that spot welder. Steve Reed, yes, Paducah. Thank you, Steve. I thought so. Dawn's Manufacturing, hello everyone. From cold, wet PDX, 70 and sunshine forecast for this week. That's awesome. Faith Followers, Customs, good evening all. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you. Glad you're here. Evans Messy Garage, yes. People kept asking me how to question. He kept asking me how to questions, adding messy. Hopefully lets them know I'm still figuring out what the heck I'm doing. Good luck with that. I can't tell you the number of questions that I get almost daily. And I try to be as good as I can and answer those questions if I can. And unfortunately, I hate to put this in this way, but it would be nice. I had somebody send me some money on PayPal because they've been using my knowledge to get further ahead on the stuff that they're doing, and it would be nice to see more on that side of things as well. But it is what it is. I do like to answer. I like to help people and try to get answers for them. But that's time. It really adds up. So, but yeah, they'll keep asking you. Michael Pagliarini says hello all. Hello, Michael. Robert, other creators have a company handle their Facebook and Instagram. They take half of the profit, but that's better than getting nothing and you don't have to do it. That is true, but I don't even know that I'm seeing Any profit. Oh, any profit. Okay. Let me rearrange the mic again. I see Robert says there's mic static. Hopefully that's better. I had it in the back again. I'm sorry. Hopefully that's better. Let me know if that's better. Troy says, Dawn, I enjoyed the latest video on your messed up rear end. So there you go. Yeah, he says mic static. Yeah, hopefully that's... hopefully that fixes it. I'm sorry. Ed Cucciarella, hello all. Hope all have changed the clocks. Yep, that one's changed. We're good. Glad you're here, Ed. Jerry's Garage, the Money Pit. Good evening to all from Middle Tennessee. Thumbs up for Barry. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you being here. Harvey, nice destructive testing. Great suggestions, Dawn. Thanks. Uh-oh. Did I miss? Oh, from doing the testing? Jerry checking in. Howdy, Barry. Howdy, y'all. Hope you all are having a great day. I'm sure Robert is because I am not there. Okay. Car Guy Troy, you could maybe get a bead roller and make the floor patches. If they are small areas, might be worth a try. Personally, not talented enough for much of that. Haven't used one much. I have a generic bead roller from Harbor Freight. I would have to have something that was powered to make that happen. And then I would have to have sheet metal that I could use, and it would become more difficult to try to do that myself. So better on the mic. Yeah, sorry about that. Evan, see, I usually send the questions I get to your channel, so that's where some of your questions come from. Great. Appreciate that. All right, the Dawn says more better. Good. Okay. Mark Watson, the gentleman, is Fat Fender Customs. He specializes in early Lincoln Zephyrs. He makes his own panels. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Good. I'm happy for you to have those. You found somebody. And Dawn says, thanks, Troy. It's been quite the chore. So I think maybe that's what he's referring to on the messed up. Yeah, on the rear end. Okay. Yeah, I watched. I don't know if I've seen the latest one, Dawn, but I'm with you. You shouldn't have to do all that stuff when you get one from the manufacturer, or from a sort of manufacturer, let's say. Okay. There was another something I wanted to show you. And I think this was sent by the Dawn as well. Yeah. So this was, he sent me a link to this. New in crate, 1971 Ford Boss 302. Never out of the crate. And I think when I looked at the article, I think it said back then you could have bought this for like $1,100 or something, I think is what it said. Let me just look at that real quick and see if it pops it back up. If I remember correctly, it was $1,100 and some change, if that. There's a receipt. Oh yeah. It says engine list price was $1,175, and they bought it for $650. $650 they paid for that. Now they're saying it's up for sale, and they're not sure exactly what it's going to bring. List price was $1,175. Now, if you're willing to part with a cool $50,000, you can make this engine the centerpiece of your garage, or even dare to bring it to life on the road. So it sounds like they're trying to sell it, and they're expecting to get about $50,000 for that crate engine. Could you imagine? You're rooting through somebody's garage, just there casually looking through it, and all of a sudden you look over and there's what's considered a crate engine from the early 70s or late 60s just sitting there. And you're like, how in the world does that happen? I saw pictures on Facebook that somebody had a set of door hinges for, I think, a 69 Mustang. And they were original door hinges. They still had like stickers or labeling on them from new. But they had been tossed around the shop, and they never got rid of them. They just kept moving them around, and they were getting beat up just from being moved around. But they were new hinges from back then, and it's just amazing sometimes when you realize there's all kinds of stuff out there. There's people that have a car or parts or something that they bought, and it's like Jay Leno finds these old like Duesenbergs or something that they something failed, oil pump broke or something, and the people just shoved it off in a shed somewhere and ignored it. And there's people that have done that as well. I know for like up at my dad's junkyard. So this is kind of it relates this to a junkyard story as well. We would have people bring us vehicles because it needed a work or needed work done to it. But basically, if you told them, hey, it's going to be like whatever it was, let's say it needed cylinder heads or needed a camshaft or something along those lines, and you tell them it's going to cost you this much money, and the people would just say, well, I don't have that much money. What do you give me for it? And my dad would buy the car from them and just put it in the junkyard. Now the car may have still been running at that point. It just needed work done to it, and he might have bought the car for $100, $200, and ends up with I know he bought like old Impalas, old LTDs, old Thunderbirds, all kinds of stuff. And like I said, people would need work done to it, and he would tell them, I'll fix it for this amount of money. And they would say, well, just take it, or give me this, whatever. And so we would take a car like that. Everything was still in it. It was nothing, like it wasn't wrecked. And he would just park it up in a junkyard and eventually sell parts off of it. And I can't tell you how many times I remember seeing that as a kid. And again, it could be all kinds of cars. And that's why I like those shows, Vice Grip Garage or whatever, where they make a big deal out of starting up an old car that's sitting in a junkyard. I get so irritated. I've never really watched. I've seen like one episode or something, but I get so irritated by it because all those cars are going to run. They're not getting a car that the oil pan's got, connecting rods sticking out of it. They look at those cars and they realize, oh, this one was driven in here. They can look at it and see that it was driven in there. And so we used to do this all the time at the junkyard. We'd have a car that was sitting for 20, 30 years, and somebody needed an engine or something, and we'd come up and play with the points, make sure it had oil in it, cycle it a couple times, maybe put some Marvel Mystery Oil in the cylinders, and hit the starter, and the thing would fire right up because it was driven in there. So it kills me whenever they get all these views on this junk. And it's like, well, this is trivial. There's nothing to it. But anyway, it's still, imagine the idea of finding some of these old items like that just sitting around. It's just crazy. Let's see. 67 Mustang Coupe Restoration. Good evening, Barry. Enjoyed the last video I'm working on apron install as well, so your video was pretty motivational. Awesome. That's what I wanted it to. I want that to be motivational. Dawn says, I ended up building a third member out of used Ford parts. Turned out way better. Quiet at all speeds. Well, I'll give you a bell for that. That's disappointing that the other one didn't work out. Let's see, 67 Mustang, so motivational fact that I pulled the trigger on a Shelby-style hood last night, non-Shelby length. Can't wait to use it for fitting, checking gaps with fenders. Awesome. Good. Troy, Don, I'm glad you were able to get something working. As Barry said, you shouldn't have to go through that. Yeah, I agree, 100%. Cargo Troy, new crate engine that old, that's nuts. Crazy things out there still in people's garages, etc. $50K. I guess maybe don't get it if you don't ask for it. I guess. Yeah, that's another point. You exactly right. Evan, will it run videos just go to show that people gravitate to sensationalism rather than quality content? I agree, and it kills me. It kills me because I'm not that person. I can't make myself do it like that. Now, I've thought about making a video or two like that, like my brother's Studebaker. I honestly don't know when it has run the last time. I have no clue. I know that he had put the Ford 9-inch rear end in it. The drive shaft is not connected, so there's no reason that he would have fired it up to move it around. He would have pushed it around or towed it around with a tractor. So I know it sat for decades without being fired up, but I don't know when. So I might do a will it run video on that, just because I know that car has not been run, and maybe it'll get people some interest in it. I don't know, but Richard, the spot welds you did on Solidus radiator support look factory, nice work. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I was trying to do the Wi-Fi thing again. I don't get it. Shouldn't be doing that. Rablo, I am doing my first ever apron myself. I appreciate the show. Awesome. Evan, was that Shelby style hood steel or fiberglass? Do they make them in steel? I don't know if they make them in steel. I really don't. 67 fiberglass with steel inner frame backing. It says you can use regular hinges, so it must be fairly rigid. Okay. Well, if you're using, let me tell you something. It says regular hinges. Be cautious with that. The factory, if you have factory hinges, those things can be a nightmare. They really can. Wear and tear on those. Whenever you start to cycle the hood, you'll find it may fight you. It may not be smooth, and I know over time things wear out. And I replaced the hinges on Jade when I put the hood on that car, and I used the dynacorn upgraded hinges. That's all I'm going to use from now on. If I have to put hinges on anything else in the future, that's what I'm going to use. I mean, those are good, and I recommend those. So just keep that in mind. Mr. Mikey checking in. Howdy, Mr. B. Better late than never. Well, I'm glad you're here. Evan, I have a crazy idea to take a spare non-GT hood I have, make my own steel hood for it in like 25 years once I get everything else done. Okay. Robert, I have the 65.6 Shelby hood like that. There are softer springs for them, but the hood leaves a lot to be desired in its quality, though. Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing, too, is to be cautious with the springs. Troy, that's good information on hinges barrier. I have to replace the ones on my 65. Yes. I know that Charles had bought the dynacorn hinges for this car. And I've had such poor luck with any of the garbage Chinese ones that I did demonstration videos on it, on Jade in particular. I showed the factory hinges. I showed the whatever generic junk that I had that came with the car, and then I showed the dynacorn hinges. World of difference. World of difference. Steve Reed, they make light springs so you can put on for the fiberglass hoods. Yes, yeah, and that's going to be imperative that you do that. I know also that some people have used no springs. They'll put just the hinges on and use a hood prop. I mean, that's another option. I'm not saying that it's the best option, but I know that a lot of people struggle with getting springs that work right, or just the idea of possibly having, some sort of a failure when you're trying to close it. Some people just take that risk completely out of it and just say, do away with the springs. I'll get a hood prop in here and be done with it. So, Ryan Tacone, I guess Tacone, right? I left work early to be here with the family. Awesome. Richard, I was looking at the longer tongs for the spot weld on Amazon. They're a little pricey. They have up to 18 inches long, I think. Oh, that's cool. I mean, I understand price eater. It's cool if they make them longer. I don't know exactly where I could use those though. The 18 inch. I could almost use some that were, let's say, not as tall. Like his example in here, where the airbox meets the cowl. I guess that thing would probably work on that. But anywhere you have to get in deep, all I could see is like where the quarter meets the B pillar. I may have to look at those just to see, because I know whenever I do my Mach 1, I'm putting on, sort of putting on the dynacorn, not full quarters. I'm going to have to slice and dice, as much as I hate to do that. But I will have to do that to make those work, and it may be something I look into, is getting longer tongs, let's say. Robert, yep, the HD ones are nice. Got a pair of them for 68 plus. Yeah. Marcus Frisk, howdy from Texas. Sun's still up. I'm late. Glad you're here. Car guy Troy, I bought a set of dynacorn hinges for a 66 I had. I was pretty impressed. Good part, I thought, too. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, another thing that I have going on, you know, I've talked before about the, hold on just a second. I've got an email coming. I talked before about us using our RV to try to do some road trip stuff. And we have not had a chance to use it. And so at this point, we are scheduled for a trip this weekend. My wife and I have been prepping the RV, trying to make sure that everything's ready to go. And we're taking a relatively short trip, let's put it that way. We're probably going, it's 40, 50 miles from here. And we're going to have one of our kids stay here and you know, keep an eye on everything. But we're going to take the RV out and go with another couple. They have a tow behind, but we're going to take it out and just do a dry run and see what's going to work. I know that I've wanted to do some trips. We talked about going to Ponies in the Smokies, which is probably not going to happen. We also talked, I was invited to go to Bronco Fest up in Tennessee. Probably not going to happen. And there's another event over in Alabama that we may be able to try to make that one work. That's at the Barber Museum, motorcycle place. So we're going to see if we can do that. But yeah, there's a lot to do whenever you're trying to plan a road trip, even if it's just a short distance. Let's see. Ryan, Joe, I emailed you new photos of the progress on the 67 Mustang. So here we go. There it is. Now, if I remember right, you made something on that. I don't know if you made the upper quarter pieces or something. It's been a while. Interesting neighborhood you have there. It looks like you have like duplexes or townhomes across the street, and you have your nice open air garage. That should get some attention. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. I don't remember exactly what you. I think this was the same car we saw, where you had made the upper part of the quarters. I don't remember exactly. Okay, yeah, he says quarter panels. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's looking good. That's looking good. I know for my picture, I can only see it as so big, but let me look at it on my my computer. All right, so you've got a little work to do on the. It looks like where the deck lid meets the tail panel area there. Yeah. Now the other question is, have you test fitted a window in it to see if you have the back glass? Faith Followers had a fiberglass hood on my 72 C10. The best springs I could find were off of a trampoline. Okay. Interesting. Oh, there's the other picture. Yeah, that one's a little harder. It has the sun hitting it, so it makes it a little more difficult to see everything. But I'll put that one up too. Let me get that one. Yeah, trampoline, that's not a bad idea. It's okay. Here's the other shot of the Mustang. Yeah. So, like you said, have you tested the back glass? Excuse me. Have you tested the back glass? That's always an issue. Now, I know that I had comments before on when I was doing this car that there was concern about the fitment of the back glass, and the reality is there's only so many ways you can make it fit, right? Like with the roof having the kind of the cupped ends that overlap the quarter panels, you can't change the dimension of that roof. You have to assume, let's say, that roof dimension is correct. And then the bottom panel, the deck filler panel, let's assume that length is correct. So that gives you your width. There's really nothing you can do to change that. Now, the only thing you could change is the location of the deck filler panel. You can move it up or down, right? To a point. Once you get it in position, you also have the deck lid and the extensions. So whenever I do any kind of mock-up of those pieces, I make sure this piece is going to fit this piece and this piece will fit that piece, right? Also, because I had the original car in the back, I could do drop measurements from the top top roof opening down to the deck filler opening. It's really nothing you can do otherwise. It doesn't matter. I get what they're saying. The glass needs to fit, but the reality is there's nothing I can change. Once you have the dimensions exactly the same as what's in the original car, you're done. There's nowhere else to go with it. But I do appreciate the concern with that. But I'm still confident it's going to fit just fine. So Ryan says, tested with a cardboard cutout of the glass. Well, I would. You better get the real glass in there and make sure, because that glass can fool you with the curve and different things like that. Cardboard, yeah, it gets you close, but you need to get the regular glass and make sure it fits. Michael, does anyone know where I can get hard parts for a C4? Looking for forward clutch drum snap ring, 0.088 to 0.094 thick. That's pretty specific. I used to have a connection. What is it? There's a company like Transmission Parts Wholesalers or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact name anymore, but they were a company. I think they were here in Georgia, where you could order just about anything for a rebuild kit. But I don't know specifically anymore what that. I can't remember the name of it. Faith Follower says kids were fit to be tied though, stealing the springs from the trampoline. Ryan, I could probably get a complete C4 trans for $200. Well, that's a good price, but as you say, shipping would be difficult. Yeah. Sometimes the price is great whenever you get them to bring it to you. Yeah. Sometimes, like I think was it Michael he was looking for he was looking for a trans and he found one, and he's rebuilding it. That's something I've never tried to do. I've never tried to rebuild a transmission. I feel like I can do it, but I just don't want to. I just don't want to. Robert says Cobra transmission shows it out of stock, but might try calling. And Ed says on the C4, if the clutch pack is loose, they make oversized steel plates. Okay. Yeah, I've not even tried to mess with a transmission. Working on airplanes though, and understanding the manual and diagrams and all that other stuff, I'm sure I could do it. I know that I have a friend who does transmissions all the time, and he's got specialty tools and different things to test it and make sure everything's going to work. That's where I don't want to get caught up in it. I don't want to have a pile of tools here that I only use once. So I just hand them to him and say, here, take care of it. Ryan, working on a proper centerpiece handbrake at the moment for that Mustang. Mix matching parts and the universal kits to get something that goes well with the setup. Okay. Denny Alvey, Barry, I have a 66 289 Ford that came from a local trade school. Ford sent them a couple of 289s for the kids to wrench on. The instructor hid this in the back room and they gave him the motor. Oh, wow. That should be just to make that a coffee table. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool, yeah. Oh, by the way, I think is this also... Is this the anniversary of the first Mustang? Or first one down the assembly line or something? This date? I think I remember hearing that. That it was like today or something. Yesterday was the first Mustangs going down the assembly line. I don't remember. I think I've heard that. Don, I consider auto transmissions as a career unto themselves. Yes. Yeah. I don't want to dig into that. This guy, he does it for a living. That's what he does, transmissions. He used to have his own shop, and then he got kind of pushed out of that by the city. And so he went to his house and put in 2 lifts, and he rebuilds transmissions in his basement all day, every day. And he also builds engines. He built the engine for Jade, and I will hand him off one of the 351 engines that I have and say, here, build me a stroker for my Mach 1. So that's going to be on the to-do list as well. Car Guy Troy, I have a lot of use only once tools. I'm great at that. Yeah, I've had, this is funny, a couple things here. I redid a 69 Corvette for a buddy of mine. And part of that involved taking apart the rear axles, rebuilding everything back there, resetting everything. And if you ever mess with a Corvette, it's got its own configuration. So the axles are little drive shafts, and so that's your drive axle, but the actual axle is only that long. And in order to get that set properly, you have to have special tools. And so I ended up buying those tools so I could redo the bearings and have everything right, and it worked out. It worked fine. Have I ever used them since? No. They're sitting in the drawer over there, and I have no use for them. I have no use for those tools. I find it very unlikely that I'm going to be messing with another C3 Corvette anytime soon. Mr. Mikey, my C4 only went backwards the first time I tried. Oh, okay. That's not good. Yeah, only. I figured that. Yeah. Yeah, I've just not had the desire to get into transmissions, even the manual transmissions. I just haven't. It's its own little world altogether, and it's kind of like Dawn was messing with the differential, and going through that thing several times. That is another very specific process. And unless you're going to do it all the time, or you have a background knowledge in it, it can be a bit of a problem. And specifically for somebody who does drag racing, like Don races his car or wants to race his car again, you've got to have all that stuff right, because you don't need something to come apart going down a track. That's the worst thing you can have. Robert says you can have the direct piston machine down to put in another clutch set. Okay. So that could be another option as well. Hold on just a second here. Whoop. And Michael says, Cobra is out of stock. I'm adding clutch to each drum. The snap ring is set to the end play. I have the OE part number. Had Tasca Ford, so parts find nothing out because of its age. Yeah, that's again out of my out of my range. Hold on just a second. Okay, so Robert, I sent you a link if you're interested. See if you're interested. Let me think here. What else was there? What did I did? Oh, that was the other thing I did. I did a brick job this past week as well. I had a friend. I think I posted pictures on Facebook. They had a. This was an oddity. They thought they had their caliper or their brake pads had worn out, and they were rubbing on the rotors. And what it really was the bolt that holds the upper caliper bolt on the right side, not the bolt, but the slider, the actual slider. That thing broke and let the caliper slide back, and the wheel was rubbing on the back side of the caliper, which does sound like a grinding sound, but they ended up, thinking they needed to have all that, extra work done. And I opened it up and I looked and I was like, wow, I've never seen that before. And so I got new sliders, and that's another little dark side of things. I went online. I looked on Advanced Auto Parts because I go there frequently. I go on Advanced Auto Parts and I'm looking for those sliders, and they had them. And so every time I do something like that, I'll take a little picture of the part number and what I want, and I will go to the parts store and try to help them out by saying, hey, I have the part number, this is what I want. And I've been to this Advance a couple times, and this person behind the counter, very, I don't know how to, almost combative. I've walked in and I said, hey, I need a part for this vehicle. And they're like, what do you want? I'm looking for the parts, the slider. And I said, if it helps, I have the part number that I'm looking for. I have the part number. And they're like, well, do you want to use, you want to see what what it says here, or do you want what you found online? And they're being really aggressive with me. And I'm like, well, it's your website, so I'm assuming you already have that. I'm just assuming. And I show them the part number, and they were like, oh, well, I'll go get it. We'll see if it fits, kind of thing. I'm like, you work at Advanced Auto Parts. I get it. You hate your job or whatever, but you don't need to be mean to the customers. I'm trying to help you out by making your job easier. And this person was very combative with me. And of course, they went and got that part, brought it back, and it was exactly what we wanted. And anyway, it was just one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to make it easier for you. I'm trying to show you I've already done the research. They didn't like that. I was making their job irrelevant, I guess. So, you know what? Robert is going to join us.
Hey, how's it going?
There he is. Okay.
I've got to switch computers here because this thing is so old and antiquated. That's why the picture looks the weird color it is.
Okay.
It's so slow. I can't use the other software stuff to make the lighting look right.
Okay. So you want me to pull you off?
Nah, it's fine. No, I've got to I have to get another computer at some point for out here.
Oh, you mean not like right now?
No.
In
Well,
the future.
I was surprised. I plugged it in. It's like it hadn't run for a while. I was like, it didn't want to stay on because the battery was so dead. And I have a little clamp thing over here holding the screen together because the hinge is broken.
There you go. See?
It's fine in the shop. Something happens to it. I don't care.
Yeah, I get it. Let me see. Dave Tyson checking in. Good evening, all. Late. I think it's only our second Dave sighting. Evan, Michael, maybe call around to local trans shops. They might have what you need and be willing to part with it. That's a good point. And Troy, I would think a local trans shop would have something like that if they will part with it. That's the hard part. And Michael, been 30 years since I worked at Hurd Buick GMC. Did my fair. Okay.
Transmissions, probably.
A fair amount of transmissions, I guess.
I've done enough of them on my own that just now when I smell transmission fluid, I'm like, I smell it and it's like,
well, you know what's crazy? The friend of mine who does transmissions, he wears these gloves all the time, little like latex type of gloves, because he's allergic to the transmission fluid now. But every time I go there and I see him, he has these gloves on, and I look, and there's transmission fluid up here. It's running out of the glove because he just puts his hands in it anyway. I'm like,
there's like, what's the point?
What's the point? Don says, I asked for a 9-inch Ford pinion bearing, and they ask for a year, make, and model. Their system has no other way to look stuff up. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's not like the old school stuff.
No, it's not like looking it up in a book. And one of the suppliers in Dallas I used to buy from, it was a wholesale supplier. I used to buy my stuff from. I would buy brake pads. I could get some metallics, Wagners or Ray Bestas, for $5 a set. I mean, that stuff was it was dirt cheap. I'd buy rotors for $8, $10 a piece for some of the smaller ones. But what I did when I went over there was I'd go to their little stack on the side, and it'd be okay. Here, I'm going to grab that Wagner book. They had all of the big thick ones, and I would grab all those because they didn't just have the parts there. Okay, this part fits this.
Right.
It's this diameter. It's this thickness. The offset is this. So if you wanted to find a rotor to fit, customize something, you could actually go through the book, and you had the dimensions of all the parts in there. But I got that. I would get and it would have, a master cylinder, piston bore sizes on each one, how far it goes in, all that stuff. And sadly, I ended up getting rid of a lot of those books years ago because I had stacks of them.
Yeah.
Where do I put it? And I wasn't doing that stuff anymore. But I had all sorts of different ones, and it was handy information. It really was.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can still get it off their website, but you've got to dig for it now. It's not just flip. There it is.
Yeah, my friend from Finland, he was a part shipper. And so he still has stacks of hard copy information. And what's unique about him, I can like, here's a Fram filter number, right? He'll probably look at that number and go, oh, that's for a dunk, whatever. And I'm like, you remember that? But he'll go through all these different scenarios. He's currently a troubleshooter for Holley, doing their like Holley sniper stuff and carburetors. And he bought a carburetor from me a couple weeks ago, some sort of Holley. I don't know what it was. He gave me a fair price for it, and then he said, "Yeah, this whatever 9372A. This had this type of screw in the back in this spot, and then the B." They put a flathead screw instead of a Phillips head screw. And then the C, they changed this spring to this length. And I'm like, what?
Well, but there's a lot of that stuff like that. It's especially when it comes to carburetors. And I go to my most hated carburetor of all time was the little 2-barrel things that GM put on the front-wheel drive cars before they went to fuel injection. They had even had a heated grid thing that went underneath. It's a preheater of the fuel. But when you looked at it, it was covered in linkages.
Yeah.
It had little rods all over the place and all these little parts and pieces. And the problem is, if something gets out of whack or something gets out of distance, you have no reference available whatsoever to figure out how it's supposed to be. You're in the dark because that information never left Rochester.
Yeah.
It stayed at Rochester Carburetors, and that information never made it out in the world. So everybody relies on we found one that's never been messed with. We can measure it perfectly, and that's the only data that we have in a lot of things.
Yeah. Let's see. Michael that was his comment. He had done his fair share of transmission work for GM. And Ryan asked the question, Joe, have you or Robert ever had a Beetle?
No, but I've worked on them. I rebuilt a 60. What was the last year of the swing axle? 7, 8? where they went to independent,
Right, 69, 70 was somewhere in that range, right?
yeah, whatever the last year of that was. And it was originally done as a Baja Bug years ago, and
Yeah.
all the fiberglass was beat up. So this thing had been sitting in a barn with animals for many years,
Well,
and
yeah,
it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. And then fitting that fiberglass, that stuff was not even remotely close. That made all the sheet metal that we have on for our Mustangs, even the
yeah,
worst stuff, was better than that fiberglass was.
yeah,
And I don't fit in it. The one time I drove it, I got my feet in there, and I got my left foot on the clutch. My right foot is over here. Okay, I'm on the brake. I reach over, put my foot on the gas. I push the clutch in because I need to stop, right? So I pull my foot off the gas, and I'm like, oh crap. My foot is stuck between the hump and the brake pedal, and I cannot get my foot out from behind it
yeah,
because it was so tight.
yep.
It's a clown car. It is, I don't have clown feet. Clowns have very small feet and big shoes. I have very big feet and big shoes.
So you do have clown feet. I can't say that.
I have feet to fit the clown shoes.
Okay.
But
I can't
my foot got stuck, and I'm like, oh crap! Please don't let me rear into this car.
Yeah. Well, I haven't actually, I guess, technically I have a 68 Beetle. Technically. But it looks like that.
I'm not a Bug fan, but that would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a 68 chassis underneath that body. And that body is a Balboa.
That sounds close, but
Can't think of the name of it, and I've lost it. It's an original body from the early '60s or late '60s, early '70s. Balboa Lido. Balboa Lido.
mm-hmm.
There's two versions, Lido and El Lobo. That was the two variations of this car. So, yeah, there's actually some crappy videos of that car on my YouTube channel.
That would be fun, but I'm like, here it's just like, where are you going to take it?
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go, and really, yeah, it's just and a lot of cars are like that here because, yeah, if it can't do 80 miles an hour,
Yeah.
you're not going anywhere.
I drove this thing on the interstate once, and that was enough.
Yeah, yeah, and then find the back roads coming home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don says he had a 66 Beetle.
Mm.
I guess Ryan's laughing at your story. And Michael, I use Duracoat on the outside of the case, and it comes out amazing. Duracoat is a firearms coating. So you're talking about the transmission housing.
I've heard it mentioned before, but I've never used it for anything.
Yeah, I've not tried
heard
that.
people talk about it, yeah.
But I'll try to keep that in mind. You know, that's the thing. We get a lot of good ideas on here, and I tend to forget to write stuff down.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're too lazy to go back and watch it to remember what,
Yeah.
what it was. It's just like it's right
There was
there.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or then you forget that you forgot what it was, and you don't even know what it is you're looking for at that point.
Right.
It's the doorway effect, and
Yeah.
I really think that the door corporations, there's this big door corporation, and it's this sinister organization that implants some kind of things into doorways. They have some kind of electronic thing in doorways, so when you walk through it, you forget what you went through the door for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't know why it is, but for me, it's when I hit a doorway, I'm going into the building for this. As soon as I walk through the doorway, why am I here?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been down that path as well.
It's the way it works for me.
Ryan, thoughts of the EV industry slowly taking over? I don't think it's going to happen. Not going to happen.
But
They're trying.
Yeah, and I like the idea, but as it sits, you've got countries like, what is it, Norway, Sweden, one of those countries over there that has a ton of electric cars, and now they're fighting air pollution because you have so much tire pollution because they wear through so many tires, and it's a good idea, but I don't think the technology that we have is the right thing for it right now. Because right now it's a wash no matter what we do on whether it's a gasoline or an electric. Personally, I think right now, if you want the best mileage, the best this and that and the other, hybrid.
Yeah,
The
I
hybrid's
agree.
good.
Like the Prius and stuff,
Yeah,
you can't beat it.
and because we're looking, what she gave me permission today to sell the PT Cruiser.
What?
She gave me permission to
No
sell it.
way.
It hasn't been driven in like 3 months. Because
You're gonna fetch a pretty penny for that.
I don't
Like
know.
maybe 2 pennies.
Yeah. I actually I was looking at what they're selling for here.
Yeah.
They sell for more than you would think. I was really surprised. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
Well,
anything extra goes into the vacation fund because she actually does want to go on vacation this year.
okay. Well, it's funny you bring that up. I have a neighbor who is offering me a car
Mm-hmm.
because he's tired of working on it. And I don't know that I'm interested in working on it. It's a 2004 Mini Cooper.
You will never end working on it. It's like owning a Mercedes.
He just last year he bought an all new exhaust system for it because the catalytic converter went out.
Mm-hmm.
Spent all that money on that thing, and now it's leaking water out of it or antifreeze somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "If you know anybody who wants to buy this cheap."
Yeah.
So then I went.
Yeah,
I went and looked just to see what they're selling for. That era of Mini Cooper on Facebook Marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
$1,200 to $1,400 is all that car is bringing.
And what's sad is the PT Cruisers are selling for more than that.
You know, I
Seriously.
would be, yeah,
And as much as we make fun of PT Cruisers, I make fun of it. Trust me, I do. But that is an incredibly reliable car.
really,
It is. The only things I've done to it is replace the garbage parts that came out of the factory. Was the wheel bearings, the clutch slave cylinder was garbage, and the starter. All that stuff I did at about 30,000 miles. The front wheel bearings were already gone at about probably, to be honest, 10,000 miles out of the factory because the stuff they used was so cheap. And if you can go onto the websites and you can find threads of when everybody replaced them, you'll see as low as like 2,000 and 3,000 miles from brand new. That's how bad the factory ones were. So I bought the cheapest stuff on eBay. Worked great. But other than those things there, the battery, I need to replace the battery. An oil pressure switch every so often will leak, and I replace it.
yeah,
100 and something odd thousand miles, and that's all that's really ever been done to that car. It runs, it just goes.
yeah,
It needs a timing belt, and I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it because it's past time for it. I don't want to mess with it.
that's when the cell light comes on.
Yeah, but speaking of the hybrid thing, we're looking at probably the Sportage hybrid. The new Sportage hybrid
Okay.
is for the replacement for it. And part of the reason is when you look at the hybrid versus the gasoline, and I'm looking at similar option ones, you're telling me the hybrid that has more power overall, better gas mileage, basically the same, all the same options, is almost exactly the same price as the gasoline one. And
Yeah.
the insurance was it $200 cheaper on the hybrid than it is, or $200 or $400, $400
Okay.
cheaper on the hybrid than it is on the gasoline one. So even if the hybrid was a little bit more expensive, the insurance will
Yeah,
more than pay for
it
that.
washes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know, speaking of that, I saw an article the other day, actually a video clip, that apparently they're putting in a EV battery plant in Kentucky.
mhm.
Okay, and maybe Steve knows about this, but they're putting in this EV battery plant. The government awarded the contract
Mhm.
to a Chinese company to build this power plant or build this electric, this battery plant. The people of Kentucky, or I don't know if it's the whole state or in that area, they're going to raise the rate on their electric bill. They're going to raise the rate because there's not enough power to generate for the plant to even operate.
Yeah.
Now,
so
the next thing they're going to do is they're either going to build or increase a power plant
Mhm.
that's going to run on coal for 3 years
Mm-hmm.
to have this thing operating, and then it's going to switch over to natural gas so that they can make electric batteries in Kentucky.
So the homeowner gets to pay for the electric batteries for everybody else to have. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And all the profits go to China
Well,
in
you
a
saw the
company
one,
that's made here, made in the U.S.
did you see the one that was? I want to say it was Michigan. There was a town up there that the town approved one of those companies to build a plant there to build batteries. And when the people found out about it, they voted every single person out of city council. Every single one of them. The only one left was like the treasurer or something like that.
Right.
It was because the news went into the office, into the city council. Down, there's nobody there. It's empty.
Yeah.
They're
Yep.
all voted out. They left.
Yep. Get out. We don't want you.
Yeah, and it's like I am not against electric at all, but it's just we're not there.
No, we're not there. The battery
we're
technology is not there.
with that, and then not to mention, you've got full electric cars that in most states don't pay road tax. Okay, well your car weighs twice as much as a gasoline car. You're doing twice as much damage to that road as a gasoline car is.
Yeah.
And then you've got issues with tires. You wear through more tires. And there were some of the numbers on some of the electric ones some of these guys are going through, a set of tires, 8,000 miles in some cases. Now, obviously, you run it harder, you're going to go through more because they've got a lot of torque.
Yeah.
But still, the lifespan of the tires on them is not great. And they're not cheap tires. And all those tires grind up. You got rubber and the chemicals from that floating around now. And tailpipe emissions are not much of anything anymore, to be honest.
Right.
They're incredibly clean. But
I'm going to try to adjust something on here. I've not seen this as an option before.
okay,
I don't know if it'll let me do it. Hold on just a second. I'm going to try, keep talking for a second.
okay, I'm going to go ahead and read his message over here
Okay.
on the CFLs, and I totally agree on the CFLs. And for a short time there, they were kind of the thing, but it was that was a transition technology between incandescent and LEDs. And
Right.
now with LEDs, I'm like, I have no desire to go back to an incandescent bulb.
Yeah.
They've got the colors. The color is right. The brightness. They're reliable. Yeah.
The only issue I've had is like in here, these are all LEDs,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had some interaction with my cameras. Sometimes the frame rate doesn't work.
Your last video, I noticed a tiny bit of rolling shutter on. I want to say it was like when you were something in the engine bay or something. There was a tiny bit of it.
Yeah. Was it time lapse or was it the regular filming?
I don't remember. I can't remember, but I'm
Okay.
guessing because normally those cameras give you 50 or 60 hertz, and you pick 60. Now the question is, we don't know what it's.
Right.
Is it recording it at the other, and it's just. Yeah, it's just the switching power supplies. You don't know what they're running at, so maybe running at a.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? Not an interval, but scientific word. Just say 60, 120.
Yeah.
There's a word for that I can't remember right now, but a similar number close enough to where it still can
Right.
it can interfere with it.
What I was trying to do is increase your mic volume.
Oh, let me.
No, don't mess with yours.
Oh, okay.
I've adjusted on this end, and I don't know if it helped anybody, but because you were a little quiet on my side when I was receiving you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to do yours remotely. So
Yeah, I can. One of these days, I might just grab her mic because she's got a actual separate mic.
yeah, well, yeah, that's fine.
Because
Um,
I'm just using this Logitech little.
right. Yeah.
The camera and stuff on the computer here are horrible.
Yeah. So Evan says, until they put a solar panel on the roof so it will charge while I'm at work, it's not cost effective. My daily driver is practical. My Mustang is the opposite. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and now and then I look at too. It's like certain people. It's like, okay, full electric car works great, fits their needs just fine, because their commutes are a length that works. But when you look at the long term, okay, ownership of the vehicle. It's like, why did I pay that much to only drive this short little bit every day? And it
Right.
the return on investment just isn't there in some cases. Some it is, but I
Yeah, well, that's
don't,
where you're
I
saying the
don't need
hybrid
to,
is a better
yeah,
option. So,
yeah, and I don't
um,
need to like totally be down on electric cars. I like the idea. It's just the number. I'm looking at numbers. I'm
sure.
looking at numbers. I'm not looking at
Yeah, I get it.
trying to change anything else. So
Amateur hour evening, all better late than never, I guess. Glad you're here. Rick Kane says my problem is hybrid is way more expensive when it needs to be repaired.
and yeah, they can be. Yeah. Fortunately,
Um,
with the Sportage, it's got a 10-year warranty on all that stuff.
yeah, that's good.
And I will say I've had better luck with Kias and stuff like that than I have with Toyotas.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, my
Okay.
parents, their little Toyota, like 130,000 miles, and it lost a cylinder going down
Oh,
the freeway.
yeah.
And my thing is I like Toyota. Don't bash me for saying I think Toyota makes a quality product. And we were talking about this earlier, and everybody says, to buy a Toyota, it's the best quality, this and the other. It's like, if it was really that good, didn't you think they'd stand behind that and say, hey, we'll give you a 10-year warranty?
Yeah.
If the quality's really that good,
Right.
I will stand behind it for 10 years. And they say, well, if you bring that up and say, oh, well, but you're not going to need that warranty. It's like, if I don't need it, why don't you go ahead and offer it? Which, when I see things like that, that means that not really as reliable as what you're saying if you're not willing to stand up and say, hey, I'll give you a 10-year warranty.
Right.
That's just the way I look at it.
So the answer to your was either hertz or frequency was the two choices we were given by Matt on your lights. So I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Dawn, I understand. She says we'll have
Yeah.
to sit down and talk about electric cars and such. So much wrong in that last
I,
discussion.
I have done massive amounts of research into it, and it just doesn't work right now. It doesn't. It's just, trust me, I've got enough studies I can back up everything I'm saying.
Well,
I
and
mean,
like we said, I have friends who have the Toyota Prius. They love them. They do great. And
Oh, yeah.
they're fantastic.
Uh-huh.
But what we run into again is the whole idea of all electric. For some instances, it's fine. Like you're
Uh-huh.
saying, short commutes. They've done testing where they said, "Oh, let's load up the car with people and food, groceries, and travel 100 miles." And they see everything. The batteries are dropping off. They're not
Oh,
able to
yeah.
keep up. All the stats go with like perfect situations. Like if you drive it at 55 miles an hour, there's only one person in the car, and you don't do anything else and just drive it. Okay, that's great. You get some good numbers. But when they start doing like the Ford, they did we have people who have done real world testing where the Ford said, "Oh, you can take our truck and you can tow a camper with it. You can do this." And guys have gone out and done that, and they barely made it from one station to the next, like 70 miles, 100 miles, whatever it was, and they had to stop and recharge the thing because they
Well,
were towing a camper.
and one of the big things that nobody talks about, one minor fender bender and your car is total.
That's
And part of that has to do with not just, especially if it's Tesla, they'll go straight to auction. They're gone. They're going to be parted out.
yeah,
And you may only have 20, 30,000 on it. You kind of lost out there on that. Everybody's looking at this 100,000 mile lifespan of it, assuming the car will be around that long. And then you've got, it only got hit over here. I don't know what happened to the battery.
right. Or the
I don't know
electronics.
what happened there.
Yeah,
From an impact, things get shook. Maybe fine right now. 5 years from now, something may wear through. You got a battery fire.
and then you got a car that's burst into electrical fire that you can't put out.
Exactly. You don't know what happened. That's the problem.
Yeah. Evan says there are use cases where electric would make perfect sense, but it's not a situation I'm in. Yeah, and I mean, I try to get in on whenever Chevy did or GM did their test runs in the 90s with the electric car, the AV1 or whatever.
AV1,
I tried to get in on that. I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
part of that test group.
That was a cool car. Yeah.
It was a cool little car, and then they got rid of it. They
Mm-hmm.
dumped it. And there's been discussion on, I think if they ever get around to making the sodium batteries and making those work, because a
Mm-hmm.
sodium battery, if I understand correctly, will recharge much quicker than the old style batteries. And if that's the case, then you don't have somebody sitting at a charging station for
Mm-hmm.
hours paying an exorbitant amount of money to recharge while they're waiting.
Oh yeah.
And then, have to
Yeah,
deal
and
with it dying on them.
and I've even looked at, when you look at how much you're charging per kilowatt hour at a charging station, it's expensive.
It is.
Yeah, it's not 10 cents a kilowatt hour.
No.
It
No.
is not.
And even if you try to hook it under your house, you still have to change out. You have to put in. I don't think you can go straight to an outlet. You have to have like the
A lot of them will
transformer.
have a 10 outlet, but it would take days.
Yeah, you have to have something to boost it up to get it
Yeah,
to get it
yeah,
charged correctly.
220. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's yeah.
Like here's an example. We have the town next to us, Peachtree City, Georgia.
hmm
It is a planned community, and that planned community, they have golf carts everywhere.
hmm
I mean, everywhere. They have specific cart paths. These things travel miles and miles to do their job, to go to restaurants, all that sort of thing. It's great. It really is. But that's a whole different environment.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
that-
like you're.
and that city is totally set up for it, and it was really cool. I like the little paths, and I mean that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a really neat idea.
And also what you look at England. Go back to the 60s when they were delivering milk. Those were electric trucks.
Yeah,
So that's, it's nothing new from back then either. And what was it? The first cars we ever had were electric. First delivery trucks.
That was early on. They were
way
experimenting.
back. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Tyson says mice damage. That it could very well be. Matt, no infrastructure for charging electric cars. Electrics don't like the cold. That is another valid point. So long trip don't test it. All of our goods and services are transported through semis. And that is true too.
Yeah, and I looked up just to see how many charging stations we had in our area, and no, not many.
Yeah.
I think there's 4, and
Yeah.
that's in a very large area.
Yeah.
And a couple of those are Electrify America, which are well known for not working when you get
Right.
there.
Well, and you're also finding that these crackheads are showing up and cutting the cables off.
Yep.
And then you're stuck. Somebody's got to come out and fix that,
Well, and then some of them you've got like the Tesla ones. It's not just a cable; it's a cooled cable. It has a coolant that goes through the cable because you're running a smaller cable, and they're pumping more power through smaller wires, so they have to cool it.
Okay.
That's how you get away with the smaller conductors, and so you can make it flexible. And
Okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, on their the high speed DC stuff. And
okay.
It's really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool stuff they got.
Yeah. I mean, I really do hope that they can figure out a way to make the batteries not only last and charge, we'll say, number one, charge faster, number two, last longer, and number three, be recycled in a way that is good for everybody. I know that they can recycle batteries. I know that.
It's
But-
difficult.
It's difficult, and then all of the infrastructure to build these batteries is really what's. I mean, you look at all the mining and all the destruction they do to get these things,
Yep.
up to speed.
And then you've got, what was it? Just the other day, there's a battery factory in Michigan somewhere that the locals are trying to get it shut down because they're getting to the point where it's like, we're tired of having to send so many fire trucks out here. Because they've had so many fires at it, they're like, okay, we're done, guys.
Yeah,
You start your own fire department or go somewhere else.
right.
Um,
Well, as Evan says, that's not to say the tech will evolve to make it fit my use.
yeah.
Yeah,
But and really, we don't need huge batteries to go long ranges. What we need is Does it charge fast? And are there lots of places to charge it?
Right. Yeah, and that's where the trade-off is. You look at something that's going to say, okay, they say you can go 300 miles, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. But if you go 300 miles and there's nowhere to recharge it, then what?
Yeah. And most people, you got to look at commute of most people's. Most people's commutes are not. I'm exempting Texas from this.
Right.
But you've got a lot of the U.S. that a lot of people's commute will be 30 miles or less round trip in a day, which here, most commutes are not even 30 miles. Don't even get you one way.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, it's like an electric car, even with a short recharge, it's like, okay, I can go there, come back, and plug it in when I get home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm good to go. But yeah, it's just it's one of those. It's a great technology. It's going to be interesting how it progresses over time.
Right.
And
I know
it'll get better.
It'll get better. It has to. And I know that I've been hearing about the sodium batteries as being the future of it. The conflict we're going to run into, though, let's say they do develop the sodium battery and it works better and it recharges faster and all those sort of things. That's fantastic. What happens to everything else we've already built? What happens? Can it be retrofitted into those cars? Or do those cars suddenly become scrap and they go, well, we got to start over with another XYZ?
And there again, that's one of the things I worry about too, is say I buy a car. It's a full electric car and I'm happy with it. It does what I want. 10 years down the line, I need a new battery. My battery's gone.
Yeah.
I need a new battery. We don't make that car anymore. And you can't just have a battery that's been sitting on the shelf for 10 years that you made 10 years ago and then put that in your car. They age with time.
Sure.
So you've got to have more. They have to be rebuildable, for one. And then my ideal thing with batteries is they need to be modular.
Yeah.
We need to get it down to a point where they're
Swap
like
it out.
they're like Legos.
Yes.
I don't care what brand you use, what brand car you have, your case is going to fit these Lego parts in.
Right.
When we bring it in for service, we'll crack it open. We'll replace the Legos that are bad,
Right.
put the lid back on top, put it in your car. There's too much variation. Everybody does something different. We need to standardize the cells that are in the batteries.
Yeah.
And that way, I can just drop it off, they'll rebuild it, put it back in my car, I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about an entire battery.
Or if you look at it from the standpoint, let's say we have, like today, we all run on gasoline. Let's just say run on gas. All cars are designed to run on that gas. Or diesel, whatever. But they're designed to run on that gas. The batteries will work, but if you make them all uniform, like they say, okay, we want you to, and I know there would be a conflict because Tesla wants their thing, Toyota wants their thing, Honda wants their thing. Okay. But to make it practical, if you had, hey, here's your battery pack, we're gonna build a battery pack that's gonna be the best thing you could ever have. Build your car to fit this, or build your car around this. Use it like you're saying. And if you show up at a charging station, you don't plug into a charger. You slide that pack out, you slide another one in, keep going. They recharge it.
There's one, and I can't remember the name, but there's one of the Chinese car companies that's doing that right now.
Yeah.
That all of their cars use the same battery.
Yeah.
And you pull up to this little station, it backs your car in, it drives the car into the station. It does kind of like Tesla talked about in the beginning, and it actually takes the battery off, puts a fully charged one on. And I look at it, that's great, because one, I don't mind paying a little more because I don't have to maintain the battery.
Right.
I no longer have to worry about in 10 years spending how many tens of thousands of dollars to buy a whole new battery. So it's like a propane tank. I don't have to maintain a propane tank. I just exchange it. I get a new one. It's full. I don't have to maintain that tank.
Right.
I just pay a little more to let you do that service for me.
Right. Yeah.
So it breaks it up over a longer period.
Yeah. So Ryan says level 1 to 2 home chargers. Steve Reed, they tried the all battery car. I guess circa 1923 is what we're looking at there. Matt, plus electrics are catching on fire. It's a thing. Look it up. EV manufacturers are telling people not to charge them in their garages. Don't want to burn the whole house with it. That's a valid point.
One of the islands I don't remember if it's one of the Greek islands or Italian islands or somewhere. Or no, I'm sorry, it was actually one of the Chinese islands. There are a bunch of people. I think it's Hainan Island. You can pronounce that for me.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of people that were on vacation there, and they've had so many issues with battery fires on electric cars. They said, "Okay, we're done. You're not allowed on not allowed on a passenger ferry." And there's a lot of countries around the world that, if it's a ro-ro pax, roll-on, roll-off passenger, you cannot have an electric car on that. You have to have it on one that is a dedicated vehicle-only ferry.
Okay.
So that's already coming in. Insurance rates are going up on, like with shipping across the ocean for shipping cars across the ocean, because, the likelihood, because they can't just, even if they were able to just disconnect the battery, they really can't do anything with inside the battery.
Right.
In a gasoline car, I think they can only have, 3 or 4 gallons of gas in the car. It's something like that is all that they can have in the car.
Right.
And then put it on there, they disconnect the battery and they let it sit. But the thing I worry about is and I've seen a number of ones where you can go and look at the videos when, say, an electric car is caught on fire in somebody's garage. That's very expensive on your insurance now, not just because it burned your house down, but we pulled the car out, and now we've got all this extra gear that we have to have, the fire department has to have in order to put out and contain that fire, and your insurance company's paying for it.
Yeah.
Because when that happens, the fire department sends your insurance company.
And that's a reality that you have to consider.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when the day comes when they say, "Hey, you want to park your electric car in the house? Your house insurance is going to go up."
Exactly.
That day's going to come.
Yeah.
Because insurance companies, they look at this stuff. They're not dumb. They see they see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
So I just worry when that happens. What do you do?
Yeah.
Fire suppression in the garage.
Yeah, that may be something to look at. Michael Pagliarini, most electricity is made by some kind of fossil fuel, so how is that better for the environment? And that's another valid point. And
you lose about 50% of the electricity you produced from one end to the other in transmission.
That's true, too.
That's another thing that a lot of people don't realize.
Abe Godino, glad to hear, Abe. Hi, everyone. Let the market decide if electric cars will work. Electric is not for everyone. Freedom to choose. I'm okay with that. I'm not saying let's ban these things.
Yeah.
But you're right. The market is making that decision, and that decision is being shown on the lots. Because I know, in particular, Ford has been trying to sell their Lightning, and they're practically trying to give those things away now because nobody wants them. Nobody wants them.
Volkswagen, they've even come out and said, yeah, we can't give them away at this point.
Yeah, they've dropped the price. I've seen articles where they've dropped the price on that Lightning to like half of what it's really worth. I mean, or what it cost. They're like, just come get it. Just get it off our lot.
Yeah, if it wasn't so big and everything, it'd be like, if we could get that for the same price as what she wants the other cars, like that's fine for the short road trips. I would use it for.
Yeah,
it would work fine, but I'm not going to pay $100,000 for.
Yeah, these things are. I mean, I haven't researched it in a while, but they're like under 40.
Yeah,
is what they've been selling them for now.
Yeah, I've seen that, but when they first came out, they were selling for $100,000, and I'm like, I mean,
yeah,
a lot of the country you can still buy a house for $100,000. It might not be a great house, but you can buy house, land, something that. And people always say your house is your biggest investment. No, it's not. It's your vehicles.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Evan says, "I'll get there. It'll get there. Cheers, everyone. Have a great night. Glad you're here." We're probably just gonna skip on to the next segment here. Oh, Ed says, "I have a family member with a Fiat 500e, like new, under 40,000 miles, and it's down to under a 50-mile range and no battery available." So, yeah. C&J Hoyt, glad you're here. Good evening, Barry. Not to change the subject. That's okay. We're good for that. But what do you think of that Stark spot welder you were sent? Is it a 220? No, it is 110. And I showed a picture earlier, and I'm going to show it again now since you've asked. I did a destructive test on a spot weld just to see what it would do. So here is a picture of the piece of metal that I spot welded together, two pieces. I clamped that in a vise, and then I took a pair of duckbill pliers and tried to rip it apart, and you can see I actually ripped the metal apart. So I think it's going to do just fine, and I may do another follow-up on that. I don't know. I know people are interested in that sort of thing,
That
but
that's better than
you
a
know.
lot of the factory welds were on mine.
Yeah, I'll
There were
bet.
a lot of the welds that especially on the aprons to the firewall, that were barely an eighth inch in diameter. And there were a
Yeah,
number of them that I just took a hammer chisel and went, think, I mean, barely hit it and just snapped them right off because they were,
and and that's why I took the tips and I flattened them out a little bit to get a broader broader weld. So yeah, Ryan says I opened a huge discussion here. Haha. Yeah.
yeah, we'll make a bunch of people mad. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's okay to talk about it. And if we
Yeah.
had somebody else that was pro that
Yeah.
wanted to be on here, that would be fine too.
And it's like, and I'm not anti-electric. It's just, yeah.
No, and I'm not saying that don't build them, but
Yeah.
let's build them in a practical sense,
Oh, yeah.
and make sure we have everything lined up.
I would make that electric. I'd make that Mustang electric if it was. The problem is I can buy an entire brand new car for what the stuff would cost to do that.
Yeah. Well, and that's where people are buying these wrecked Teslas and gambling on them and turning stuff into electric cars.
Oh, their motors are impressive.
Yeah, they're incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the power you get out of that stuff is amazing. So there's no doubt about that. You can have a lot of fun with those things. But let's just skip past all that. We've had enough of that.
Yeah.
Rabelo says I'm interested in solar and electric for prepping reasons only. I would not put it on or near my primary residence. Yes.
I would like to do solar here. I mean, I could cover the roof here and put out more than enough for the entire house. That said, I'd rather have it ground mounted for a number of reasons, maintenance and
Yeah, easier to do something to it. Yeah.
and to be honest, solar is the payback. If you do it yourself, payback time is as low as 5 years. If you do it yourself,
Yeah.
you have it done. These guys that I see advertising stuff and I see what people are paying, you will never break even at what a lot of these installers are doing.
Yeah, and they
There's
try
a
to
long
tell you
time.
about, the government will give you a discount of some sort and blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of shysters out there right now with it. So
Ryan says the Fiat 500e has part of the Porsche 918 drivetrain in it. Take your word for it.
I'm trying to think what a Porsche 918 looks like.
I don't even know. They all look the same to me. Dave Britton says hello. Hi, Dave. Glad you're here. And we're probably at a point where we're going to end up closing up pretty soon. We're
Annoying a lot of people.
We're annoying people with our talk about electric cars, and I can't say it enough. We're not trying to say don't get one or don't have one or whatever. It's up to you.
Yeah, if the numbers work for you, great.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for us.
Right. Yeah. C&J Hoyt, I'm still kicking around the E-Pass for steering in the 66. Okay.
I got one in the box over there that it's not a kit.
Yeah.
It's pulled out of a car. So
Yeah.
that's something I got to work on here in the near future.
Richard says, really awesome show, Barry. Have a great night. Thank you, sir. Ryan, C&J, do it. It's actually a, I guess, thrill. Give the classic a modern feeling. And Alan says solar panels only have a limited lifespan. That isn't.
Yeah, and most of the ones that I've seen panels. I can buy used panels, and even at 25 years, those things are still putting out nearly 90% of their rated capacity. And when you get them so cheap as you do, yeah, they're pretty reliable.
Yeah. Michael says, I have 20 solar panels on my house. I have almost no electric bill, but you still have to pay for the panels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rick Gaines says they need to figure out how to power cars with dilithium crystals like they use on Star Trek. And Dawn says, been electric transportation since 2011. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think, Dawn, if I remember, Dawn has a Prius, I think. I think it's what he's driving. I don't think he has a total electric vehicle. I think he has a Prius. And again, I would be happy to have a Prius. The hybrid idea is fantastic. Whenever
And it's like, we were looking at, it's like, okay, we can get the gas, the hybrid, or they have the plug-in hybrid too. When I do my math on the plug-in hybrid, the problem is the price gap between the hybrid and the plug-in. The plug-in will basically, I can charge it at home, and it has a little bit bigger battery, and you can get more range on just the electric, and it's great. The problem is when I do the math, it'll never pay back. It'll never break even.
Yeah,
that's the problem with making that jump there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't quite so much of a big a jump in price, it would definitely be. I have no problem doing it.
Right.
Because you're going to get the best of both worlds there. It's like, oh, on electric, you're going to get about 30 miles of range, which means you can go one way something here, and then gasoline on the hybrid on the way back essentially. But you can still do longer drives with it as well, and it's. And I know the pure electric guys will say, "Oh, that's horrible." It's like, no, right now it works. It works right now.
Yeah. And Don points out Leaf and Tesla have been, I guess since 2011, have been putting out vehicles.
I've seen a few Leafs around. They have a hard time here because of their range. They just don't have remember, I'm in Texas.
Yeah.
Going to Sam's is 35 miles one way or so.
Right.
So yeah, it's, and then in the heat, and
heat's an issue. Cold is an issue. There's certain areas of the country where it's probably ideal, for either one, whatever. But anyway, anyway.
But I would love to make the Mustang electric. I have nothing against it at all. If the price was right on the stuff to do it, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
So Dave Britton says owning a cottage is 3 hours away makes a EV not worth buying for me. Yep. Ravelo says Cybertruck is cool to a point. Ryan's EV Dodge. Oh no, yeah, Dodge is I think making a huge mistake with their whole electric program.
I haven't been paying attention to what Dodge is doing.
They're basically killing the Challenger and Charger and turning them both into electrics. I don't see that going over very well. Ryan says Mustang only models continue past the competitor discontinuations of their models. That's true. Don says I drive a 2011 Leaf and a 2020 Tesla. Okay. And like I said, that's good. If it works, in your case, that's fantastic. I know for me, like I could get away with it here locally because I only go. I really don't have anywhere to go from where I live. Everything is right up the road. But I'm not gonna tow anything with it, or I wouldn't get the truck or try to tow a car trailer or anything like that. That wouldn't happen. But anyway.
And we got the Sereno because we can't do our grocery shopping in a regular car. It don't fit.
Yeah.
Because we do our Sam's, our big run once a month, and even the Sereno's full of stuff. And it's we're not like in a small like a lot of areas where you go to the grocery store a couple times a week. No, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yep. Let's see. Dave says I saw a news story from Calgary where a guy took his EV Hyundai in for a new battery a year ago, and it is still in the shop waiting for a new battery. I've seen and I've read a bunch of that and seen a bunch of that. There was a lot of miscommunication between their dealer and corporate, and there was some weird stuff. It wasn't so much that they took it to the repair shop. Well, because they said, well, that's a body. It's take it to the paint and body shop. Well, they took it to the paint and body shop, and then they requested a price on the part. It's like no. Corporate said no, that's not the way it works. And the other thing is that's a mechanical part. The shop does that, not the body shop. So things didn't get communicated correctly because corporate with them will say, hey, what's the deal? And all it was a tiny little. One of them, there's two different ones. One of them, there's a shield underneath. There was a dent in the shield. There was no impact at all to the battery, but they were still claiming because there was a dent in the shield, and this gap was so much tighter to the battery that we have to replace the battery. And I'm like, yeah, just drive it and don't worry about it. Yeah,
And
exactly.
the insurance company, because they're so afraid of it, they totaled the car on one of them.
Yeah. All right. Ed says, can we talk about carburetors now? And Don says, okay,
Sure.
I'm rebuilding my 650 double pumper. There we go.
There you go.
There we go. Rablo says, how about Sniper versus FitTech versus ProFlow 4? I don't know enough about those to tell you anything from those.
I don't know, but at some point I will need one of those. I'm probably leaning towards the Sniper, but I need to look at the software for the Sniper and the ProFlow. FI Tech, I've heard a lot of good and bad, but I've heard more good about the Sniper than I have that. And I've heard some people like the ProFlow. And I remember the ProFlow from when it first came out. And the software back then was horrible originally. You'd
Yeah.
go through, you would go through it, and there were just lines of code that were they were trying things and say, let's try this, try that, and then they would make that line inactive essentially. So there was a lot of lines of code. Instead of just deleting stuff out of there, they left it in there, put typed REM, depending on what it was, but just to make that line of code not do anything,
Right.
and it just kind of jumble it up. But I've heard that it is quite a bit better now than it was then. But that was the early days. And that was back when everybody was just taking a GM TBI and putting it on everything. The Jeep guys were doing it, for off-roading and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I'm interested in probably either the Sniper or the ProFlow. I don't know which yet, but I got to do my research on that.
Rablo says ProFlow has the ECU where you can put it inside. The others are mounted on top of the intake. That is my concern.
Yeah, because it's actually in the it's in the throttle body itself, which it kind of reminds me. I don't know if you remember back when Chrysler was putting their early ECMs in the air cleaner.
Okay.
The idea was they were running hot, so they put them in the air cleaner, so the air it had little fins, so the air going past the cooling fins of the computer that were in the air cleaner would cool the computer off as it was driving down the road. The Chrysler did some interesting things.
Uh-oh. Okay. Yeah, I kind of lost you there for a second, but you're back.
You get the idea.
Yeah. Dave Britton says, Barry, any news on how much you will be doing on Slither for the owner? Still just doing metalwork. I'm probably going to end up doing all the paint work. It's just the way it is. I'd already planned to do the underside of the car and the engine bay, and so I'm gonna end up painting the car, and then I have to get help with the stripes on the hood. I'm not confident about doing them in my paint booth. I'm worried about having a piece of trash or something get in there and it's flat black. You're done. So I have a friend who does painting, and he paints at a pro shop, and he's already agreed that we will take the hood and the cowl to the paint booth at their shop, prep it, spray it, be done with it. So I have to make sure I'm on the same page with him as far as what I need to do for the hood. Like if I'm going to do base coat, clear coat, and be done with it, and then what he needs to do to put the flat black on.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure we're on the same page with that.
Yeah, she wants some kind of stripes on this, and I'm like, I really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And you can't afford to have a shop here do anything.
Okay.
It's astronomical prices for anything.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest, a lot of the stuff, I've seen a lot of cars at car shows that, and they'll talk about, oh yeah, I had a shop do it and they cost me this, and I'm like, okay. I'm looking, it's like, I don't need to know what shop that is, or let me know what shop it is, so I don't use them.
Yeah. Michael, Sniper is what I'm going with as of now. I do know some people who are having problems with RF from the distributor. Okay.
I know of one guy that was having issues with his on a standard and having an issue with the stall saver in it, the software side of it. That keeps it, so when it's a little more complicated on a standard than it is on an automatic for the stall saver stuff. And he was having issues with it. It would do just drop out momentarily really quickly when we push the clutch in. And it would just drop out really quick and come right back. And he's still not got it figured out yet. So I need to look at their software, see if I can find something in there that might help them tuning it. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've done anything. So I did used to do some of the throttle body and the tune port stuff on the GM stuff, but that's been a while. And I look at the stuff now and I don't remember it.
Oh yeah, yeah, I get that. Okay, I looked at the clock. Hour and 45 minutes in.
And I'm getting sore.
Yeah, yeah. I got to get in the house, get something to eat. So, I thank you for being here, Robert.
Oh, no problem.
And we get you on to irritate other people.
Oh yeah, I'm good at that. I am really good at that. I am really good at that, especially purists of anything.
Yeah, maybe we'll ban conversations on electric stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good
for a while now.
That sounds
good.
Unless it has to do with the stuff that's in the car.
All right, we'll see you.
See you later.
Okay. I mean, I know we got off tangent there. We've talked about electric cars, and that's okay. We can have those discussions, and we can all have our thoughts on it. And just I don't want anybody to get mad or angry or upset with positions. It's just like everything else in life. We all have an opinion, and maybe positive in one direction and negative in another, and sometimes we cross those paths. And that's what keeps the world moving. We can't all agree on every single thing that we're doing. We can't. If we all agreed, then I can't say the world would be a perfect place. We'd still have problems. So it's okay to have these discussions. Anyway, that'll be it for tonight. I'll be back next Monday at 7. And I thank you all for being here. I hope you had a good night tonight. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.